Hello and welcome to episode 91 of the WP Café show with me, Keith Devon, and my co-host, Mark Wilkinson. As always, today we'll be talking about WordPress development and running a WordPress business, the things that we've been getting up to in the general WordPress news and that kind of space. Thanks for joining us today. If you are watching along live on YouTube, please do say hello. Let us know where you're tuning in from. Also, let us know if you have any comments or questions as we go through the show. We love a bit of audience participation, so that would be much appreciated. What else do I need to tell you? You can catch us on Twitter if you're not, X. You can catch us on X if you're not following us there at WP Café Show. We also have a website if you want to go back through old episodes. It's wpcafe.show. But I think the main place people catch us is probably on YouTube. So just search for WP Cafe on YouTube. There is something else called WP Cafe. I think it's like a restaurant theme or plugin or something on YouTube. Yeah, on YouTube. So we're not that, but you should be able to find us, no problem. So, Mark, how are you? What have you been up to this week? Any excitement?
I am very well. Not much excitement this week. Just a very boring week of getting on with tasks. Sales calls, support emails, this and that, and getting set up for a new project that we've won, which is exciting. So that's going to be happening in the next over the course of the next few months, I would imagine, before we can get that live. So that's something to look forward to. Looking forward to getting started on that.
Me too.
Other than that, pretty boring week. Played some very bad golf yesterday. Other than that, yeah. Good. What about you?
Yeah, no, similar. No major excitement. I am champing at the bit to get started with this next website. So I see that Nick is here. Hello, Nick. He's just started a new website build, and he's like tweeting along his kind of progress, which has been really interesting so far. So keep it up, Nick. We're learning things. So it's the kind of content that we need, definitely. And Mark, we should try to do a lot the same. Yeah. I think we should try to use this next project as a bit of a learning tool, not just for us, but for people that watch. Definitely. And so follow us along on X for that kind of stuff. You can follow Mark. Mark's WP Mark, and I'm just Keith Devon on X. So make sure you follow us there too.
We used to have our names on the screen, and I can't for the life of me think how to get them on.
Yeah,
and our little Twitter handles, but anyway, we'll deal with that afterwards. But
yeah, we'll leave it for now. Yeah, you're right. That's weird. So today we're going to be talking about a few things. One of them is just kind of something that's come up for us recently about development workflows, and I don't want to say continuous integration because I don't think we kind of follow anything like that. But just basically how we can work on client websites, not get in each other's way. So I'm talking like we use Git, so not getting in each other's way, but also not accidentally pushing stuff to a production server that shouldn't be there. So we have staging sites and we've got production sites, but occasionally things are getting pushed to production that shouldn't be, and we don't really have a good workflow for all that.
Is it worth mentioning the workflow we do have? So I can go through.
Do we have one?
Well, just how we use Git and what we do, how we actually use it. It might be very different to someone else's, or it might be the same. And I don't know. So all our projects have a main branch, obviously, and they all have a develop branch. Main is, I don't know if synced is the right word, but it's synced. I'm going to say synced to production, the live site. So if you push a code to main, it will automatically be deployed to the production site. We use deploy HQ for that, by the way, if you're interested. And similarly, develop is synced to staging. So if you push code to develop, it automatically gets synced to the staging site. What we then tend to do is we use broadly use the Git flow model. So if you're working on a ticket or a feature or something like that, you will create a feature branch from the develop branch, and then you will do all your code changes on that feature branch. And then the idea being when that feature is finished, it's merged back into develop, pushed to staging to see whether it works or not, and then pushed to live, obviously, if it goes live. So that's how we've worked. And why has that been a problem recently, Keith? What's failed in that flow?
Well, I think it's, I'll be working on something, and that's something like, so we often have like multiple tickets. So we use Trello, we've got Trello cards for various features and bugs and blah, blah, blah. And I'll be working on something kind of longer term, like a bigger feature. And I'll be deploying that to staging so that the client can test it, for example. And then I'll also be working on other things. It could be bug fixes that are a little bit more like immediate, so they need to be pushed quite quickly. So I'll work on that. I'll also push that potentially into staging and into the develop branch. And then suddenly it's like, well, yeah, we need that bug fix pushed, like deployed to production. I'm like, okay. So I merge develop into main, push that up, deploy it. And I know it's got my half finished feature here with my bug fix. And I just don't really know the right way to do that. And then, it's happened. I tried to fix that recently I was working on a feature branch for case studies. It was for this particular client. They wanted case studies post type. So we created a case studies post type, playing about with the templates and stuff. So I created a feature branch. Everything was in the feature branch. And then I deployed that feature branch to staging. So that was great. So then now the client can like look at that feature branch, go into the staging site, play about with the functionality, yada, yada, yada. But then next time one of us pushed to the develop branch, it deployed that. So because my case studies work hadn't been merged into develop, it gets overwritten.
Yeah.
So the case studies work is no longer on staging. So the client's like, where's all the case study stuff gone? I was working on that. I'm like, oh God. Well, I was trying to fix the other problem of not making sure that never gets accidentally deployed to production. And now I've got this other problem. And
so it almost sounds to me as though our system is very much like trains on a train track, and we want to like overtake some of the trains to get to the end almost. And you can't do that. Or if you do that, you end up losing some stuff that you still want there. So I think what we want to do is we want to work on a feature, and then we want that feature to be able to be tested by the client. But at the moment, that's kind of like stuck on its own, and it either gets overridden or it gets in the way of other features being pushed up for the front of the queue and end up to being tested. So it's not been a great deal of trouble, has it? Because we tend to do things and then complete them.
Yeah.
And there's only two of us. But I can imagine if you're in a scenario where there's 15 people in your team working on multiple bugs and tickets at the same time, this would be a major problem a lot of the time.
Mm.
And I wonder how it's solved. I wonder.
It's interesting. So I did a little, very small amount of reading on this this morning. And the Git flow model that we roughly adhered to up to this point, I think the original article I saw that one was on the Atlassian website. So I went back to that and went to their Git flow page, and it says Git flow has fallen in popularity in favor of trunk-based workflows, which are now considered best practice for modern continuous software development and DevOps practices. So I'm not entirely sure yet what that means, what a trunk-based workflow means. But basically, Git flow is old hat. So that has been usurped by other better models now. So I think this is definitely something that we should look into. But to throw another curveball at this whole situation is, now that we're going to be using full site editing, how do we manage the changes that we make, considering so many changes that are made now are saved in a database?
Correct.
How are we going to sync that between our two local development environments, the staging environment, the production environment? And that is something I have no answer to yet. So I really don't know where we're at with that at all.
So I guess a really basic example of that is in my local install, I'm going to work on a particular pattern because it's part of the design and it's reused. So I go into the full site editing editor, I create the pattern with the settings. How do you get hold of that then for your local development? Because that's in my database. So how do we?
Exactly.
What do I do? How do I get that to you? I don't know.
I can't just
actually
pull down your database and replace everything that I've done in mine. That makes no sense.
Yeah. Any suggestions that would be very useful at this point before we start this project? Elliot has got involved. Thank you, Elliot. Might be overkill, but I always create a new branch for bugs and then merge as and when the client has confirmed.
Okay, but
that's
where do
kind of what we do.
Where do you merge, Elliot? Is what I think my question is. Do you
for
merge
the client
that
to see it
directly in to the main branch or develop branch, and where do you go after that? Because I think we're mostly doing that, Mark, aren't we? Like we mostly create new feature branches, or occasionally I use the hotfix model.
Yeah.
So we are
I think
kind
that
of
only
doing
works
that,
if it's a simple fix that is like doesn't need testing almost.
Yeah.
It can go straight to live because it's just, I'm changing that from red to green and it's black and, it works. It's simple.
Yeah.
Elliot says, so he ends up with multiple bug branches, like bug 23, bug 24, and the number represents the bug test. Yeah, we don't have like an ID, but we just name it like the feature that you're building, like case studies in this particular case. And then Elliot says, bug XX merged into production and then deployed.
Okay.
So how does the client test it?
Yeah, that's my question.
Before it goes to production, how do they see it in a browser, in a website, in something that they can see in context? That's staging for us, which is where our issues are happening at the moment.
Yeah, there's too much incomplete work in staging. I think that's the problem, isn't it? You almost need, and I think some people do this. They have a develop
site
as well as a staging site. So all the incomplete stuff the stuff you're working on goes into develop. When it's kind of done, maybe it goes on to staging. As in, this should be ready. We'll just sense check it, and then there's the production site. But I don't know.
But surely, if you have develop as well as staging, you're just passing the problem to develop.
Exactly.
You push your features to develop. I want to push features to develop. I overwrite yours. The client it's just a different website with the same problem.
I kind of agree. Yeah, I kind of agree. Yeah.
Anyway,
what you almost need to be able to do, and maybe this is where something like InstaWP can potentially come in, or maybe there's another way to do this. Is say, I want to spin up a site for this branch.
Yeah.
Like, so take production, merge this branch into it, and that's what I want the client to see. Everything else can kind of stay the same. Give it a unique URL or something. That would be cool.
Yeah, so it's like create a website from production, and then push my feature branch into it.
Yes,
and then the client can see it.
Yeah,
and then you can just destroy it when it's done.
Yeah,
it's finished. Doesn't matter. And then and then once it's been fixed, you then merge into develop, push to staging, and check it all works. Merge into production.
Exactly. Once that kind of branch is closed, then that site disappears.
Disappears. Yeah,
that'd be cool.
That'd be good. Maybe that exists.
Anybody?
I kind of think it should.
I bet it does. I bet someone's created something along those lines before.
Yeah. Any other comments from people? How do you go about doing this? I know. I think a lot of the people that are watching in the chat are similar to us in that there is only a few of you working on the projects. So it might be that you're in a similar situation to us. I'm not sure, but yeah. So, yeah, and then they're working on the full site editing stuff.
Yeah.
I really don't know how it's going to work.
Well,
the only thing. Go on.
Craig has just said you just have to work directly on the staging server, else you'll always face database dilemmas.
Yeah, just going to say that.
So that could be our new local development environment, is actually the staging site. I don't like it. It feels, I don't know, doesn't feel right to me. And then what happens?
What have other people done?
What happens though once the site is actually live, and you've got to maintain the staging? I don't know.
And then you can't version control it either.
Exactly, can't version control that stuff. Yeah.
Do you need to version control that stuff though? I don't know.
I don't know.
But yeah, I don't know. Patterns. It's more like patterns and things, isn't it, that you're creating in the database? How do you version control those? And then, like I build a pattern and then you say, oh, that's got the wrong padding on it or whatever. How do we then change it?
This is one of those, this whole topic is one of those things where there's no like silver bullet. There's no one answer for every situation. It's very much it depends. It depends on the project. It depends on the team. It depends on the size of the team. It depends we've just got to find a way that works. I think no matter which approach we could take a very complex approach, using Git in a fancy way. We could start using pull requests, etc. But that stuff always feels like overkill for a 2-person team to me.
Yeah, a little bit.
So I think whatever we come up with in the end isn't going to be the thing that's perfect for everybody. I think we just got to find something that kind of works and negates some of the problems and gives us a few benefits, and we'll just work around the rest of it, I guess.
Yeah. Oh well, we'll let you know how it goes when we start wrestling with all these patterns and whatever else we have to create. So yeah, we'll see.
Interesting. Okay. So Elliot, he says, I think WP core developers use Git IDs that you can check out in Playground with get parameters. Now, that's something I'd like to learn a little bit more about. I'm not sure exactly how that works, but I haven't used Playground at all.
It's a bit like Insta WP, isn't it?
Is it purely browser based or something though?
Yeah, but
I don't know how that works. That's amazing.
You can just create a site though. I think that's the idea, isn't it?
But surely we can't create like a mega multi-site. I don't. Maybe you can. I don't know. I thought there'd be limits as to what you can actually do in a browser, but maybe not. Maybe not.
I guess if it's WordPress, then it can be WordPress, can't it? Otherwise, what's the point?
Yeah. I have no idea how Playground works. It's just like magic to me.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It's magic.
Yeah. We'll report back. Elliot's on the case. Thank you.
Good.
Thank you, Elliot.
Mark says patterns are developed in the editor and then moved out to files and added to the Git repository when they're ready. How do you do that? How do you move them out to a file? Is there a... Have we?
We've created pattern files. Yeah, you just grab the block markup and dump them in a file.
Oh, right. It's that easy, is it? You literally just copy and paste it into a file in your theme.
I think so. And then you have to obviously tell that your theme needs to reference that file somewhere. But we've done it. We've created pattern files before in the theme.
Right. But then you're not using the editor to actually make change. I want to go and tweak that. How do I tweak that then? I want to wrap that. I want to wrap that in a div, in a block, in a group because it's wrong, and then I want to give that group something. It's now in the files. I can't then use the editor to change it.
I think you can, but then it saves it in the database.
All right. So it creates another copy, which is then used instead of the one in the theme.
This is all stuff that we're going to have to get our heads around. Yeah. I'm not entirely sure what the answers are.
Pixels and Things plays. Thank you. You can build out a pattern within the WP in WordPress and then copy that into a pattern file and version control that. Only issue is that the further changes to the pattern over time. That's pretty much what we just said. Yeah, how do you deal with that? And then Elliot says, with Create Block plugin, you can also export the theme. Obviously, you need to do some funky moving of files.
Yeah, Nick says the same thing. Create Block theme plugin has some sync options to move styles, etc., to the theme. Oh, we've got a lot of stuff to learn, Mark.
Yeah. Insert the pattern to the page, modify it again, and copy the file again. It all seems a little bit, I don't know. What's the word?
Hacky?
Hacky, yeah. Maybe it's a word, yeah. Oh, yeah. I guess if it works, it works. We'll let you know how we get on. Sounds like nightmare fuel, says Craig. I'm not sure it's that bad, but it's it's new. Let's just say that.
Janky. Yeah.
Cool.
You're good.
Next on the list to discuss. I quickly added patterns versus template parts. I've talked about this before. I don't know whether we've talked about it on here before or not. I am still unsure of what the difference between patterns and template parts is. So I asked the world on X what the answer to that question is.
And what is
And
the answer?
I have to confess, I'm still unsure what the difference between patterns and template parts is, even with the answers.
Oh dear.
So there was some answers. Carolina says template parts are the predecessors to synced patterns. The predecessors to synced patterns.
Okay.
Template parts were added as an equivalent, for example, header.php and footer.php in a classic theme, to be able to show the same blocks in multiple templates. That's a pattern, though, to me, isn't it? A pattern.
And under the hood, aren't they just patterns?
Well,
they show up in the pattern UI, don't they?
That's a very good question. Yeah.
Or do they? It's so confusing. I don't see what the difference. So basically, what should be a template part? So I think the classic ones are header and footer. You might throw sidebar in there, but a sidebar seems to be a bit of a thing of the past. What else is a template part? Are we saying that those are the things that are template parts? Or are there potentially more template parts? And like you say, when does that just then become a pattern? Like, why can't we call a header a pattern? Site header, it's just a pattern.
Exactly. Why can't the header just be a pattern? Here's a pattern of blocks that's synced.
And I remember, Mark, you were showing me the other day, like you were clicking around the site editor, and you're like, hang on, why is this template part in here? Or why is that pattern in there? And like even the naming, they were all like kind of confused within the admin UI as well. So
yeah. A few other people answered. Angela Bowman said, template parts are applied to the site more globally. Think of header, footer, or even a single post template, which has title, author, date, and category. Patterns would be used for formatting the actual guts of the page for unique layouts of content.
Could we not have called them like global patterns then or something instead? Like,
but how do they differ from patterns? They're just patterns that are synced. That's why I don't get it.
Exactly.
As to why they're different. So traditionally, you might have a query block, and then inside the query block, I'm talking like a classic theme here, sorry. So you'd have a query loop, and inside of the query loop, you'd say, for each post, let's get template part, and let's use the same thing for each post.
Yeah.
So in block themes or full site editing themes, would you do the same? Would you create a template part for that? In the full site editing, and then put your post title and your featured image or whatever in there and design it, because you could just use a pattern, couldn't you, that's synced with the title block, the feature block. So I don't quite understand the difference.
I think one of the kind of maybe not actually. Template parts feel more like something that's added to a template, like it's like a template pattern. So like you go into your single template editor and you add a header at the top and a footer at the bottom. I don't know what you put in the middle. Site content, is that a template part? Is that a block? So that sort of makes sense to me. They're like patterns at a higher level, and then regular patterns are things that you add to the content. So for example, when you go in to edit a page in the site editor, full site editor, if you click on the header, you can edit that, but it's like a different, can't remember if because it keeps changing, but I can't remember if it takes you to a edit view just for the header, like edit the header. It's not part of the page like that you're currently editing. Isn't that right? Like you have to kind of take an extra step. It's not like just adding a page title and a paragraph and an image to your content when you're in the page editor. Like the template parts are slightly, they're like slightly separated from that, as far as I'm aware.
I don't know how patterns work with that. If you've got a synced pattern, how do you edit that on a page? Do you then get taken away from the page like you do with the template part? I don't know the answer to that.
I don't think you do. I think you can. I think there is a view where you can edit those independently, but I think you can edit them directly from the editor.
Right.
The page editor.
I find I find the fact that no one can explain to me what they are is a problem, because it's obviously very confusing to not just everybody, even though they might not think it's confusing.
Yeah.
There isn't a clear definition of what is a template part and what is a pattern, and why have we got both of them? Why do they both live in patterns? And when do I use one and not the other one? I genuinely can't make that decision as to what the right thing to do is.
Yeah.
Which is strange. Mark, thank you, says technically patterns and parts are the same thing. That's kind of what I thought. But template parts are usually only added once and not modified. Patterns are for users to insert into the block editor, not just the site editor. Patterns are usually...
Yeah.
No, I still don't understand, really. And as Elliot says, template parts don't generally change. Patterns do get changed. But why would a template part not get changed? Surely that's the whole point of the site editor, isn't it? We can change things.
Well, but they're not likely to change regularly, I think.
But then how does that affect the functionality of them?
I think the difference is what I said. So whenever you're editing a page, the header and footer are not what you're editing. You can see them, or can you? You can't even see them, can you? In the edit page view,
template parts.
You can't. Can you see the header and footer on a page?
Yeah, you kind of think, can't you?
I'm not sure, because
hang
on, I did have a InstaWP site.
Yeah, you can see them.
I can't.
I can in the
page edit view.
Oh, right. I don't know where I am. Wait a minute.
part of the problem.
I'm in pages.
So I'm currently editing a page, and the first thing it says is add a title. I don't see the header.
Yes.
Because I'm editing the content part of that page. So the templates are built up with template parts. Maybe we should call them template patterns. And then within the content editor, I'll call it, that's where you would use regular patterns. That's what I've come to the conclusion, is that's how they're separated, which kind of makes sense. Does that make any sense to you?
Sort of, yeah, but they're the same thing. So I don't understand why functionally they're different. Why don't we just use patterns all the time? I don't get it. I kind of get that you do template parts in a template, but why couldn't that just be a pattern?
I can't. So you think so if I create a new page, you want to be able to. There's no such thing as a template then? You want to have to add the header and the footer to that page every time individually?
I'm saying my page template calls a pattern called header that's synced first, and then it calls a pattern called footer that's synced at the bottom, and then the content goes in the middle. So if I want to change my footer, I just edit my synced pattern for footer, and it goes across the website. Yeah. Like the old reusable block did.
But I think that is what's happening, though. But it's just like, I think they've tried to make the UI more familiar to people that understood what template parts were back in the day.
But that comes back to my point. If they're the same thing and that's what's happening, why do we have this concept of two different things that I don't really think are different?
I don't know.
Yeah, I can't add a template part in a page.
No.
But then, surely I would want to add a template part if I had a query block and I wanted to show a card. That's what I'd do in the classic theme. I'd have a query that has a card for each template, each post.
That's a pattern.
So if I had a query block to my page, why would I not want to use a template part to say, hey, for each of these, use this thing?
Yeah, so like on an archive template, the actual kind of query list loop itself would be a template part.
Yeah, so let's say we have we do this in quite a lot of sites. We have a card design. This is how a post looks like as a card, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I might have a page on my website. I'm creating a landing page for all my accountancy jobs. and therefore I'm going to put a query block at the bottom. It's going to show me the latest 4 accountancy jobs, and for each accountancy job, I want to use the job card. That would be a template part in old school. But I can't do that here because I'm in a page and I can't add a template parts inside the query block.
Maybe we were using template parts in a way that they weren't really supposed to be used. We were kind of using them as modules, weren't we? It's all terminology and like, I don't know. Yeah. It's tricky. I know what you're saying, but that would not be a pattern, wouldn't it? That card layout would be a pattern, I think.
Yeah, but why is it not a template? I don't understand the difference between them then.
Yeah.
Derek says, sorry for the struggles, but it's a relief that someone else is having similar problems. We have lots of struggles, Derek. Don't worry, you're not alone.
Yeah.
And yeah, people just saying you can only see template parts in the site editor. But I just wonder, can I put a pattern into a template? If I'm editing a template in the site editor, can I add a pattern to the template?
Yeah.
If I can, why couldn't I just create a header pattern and put that at the top and create a footer pattern that's synced and put it at the bottom? What functionality would I lose by doing that if I didn't use template parts? That's what I'm trying to ask.
Yeah.
Or what functionality would I gain by using
I wonder
template parts?
if it's just a way of organizing things. Like patterns are generally for content and template parts are generally for templates. But under the hood, they're exactly the same. That's what I think's happening.
Right. So why have the two then? I don't understand.
Well, and then because it won't let you add template parts to the page editor, so maybe that's the functional difference, you know, and that's important for some reason. I don't know. We don't know.
I'm just trying to see if you can add a pattern to all templates. How do I do this? Oh, the templates looks all different now. Woo, that must be something with WordPress 6.6 because I've just installed the beta, which is interesting. Very interesting.
So Mark sort of backs up what I said earlier. Template parts were introduced first and relate to what we used to use header.php for. So I think it says in time I'd expect them to be deprecated because synced patterns have now superseded them. I'm not sure if they are going to be deprecated. Well, I think the terminology might definitely change, but I think it's probably still useful to have a sense of maybe template patterns and content patterns. I don't know what you call them, but I think. Yeah.
So basically, Mark says I'm right. They're the same thing. That's what I'm getting. Because I can add a pattern in.
But they are the same. Like we've both said that the whole way along. I've said the whole way along they're the same thing, except they're not. Except you can't, like you say, you can't add one to the page editor, so they're not the same.
So if they are the same, like why do we need two? That's what I'm trying to understand. Why don't we just say forget template parts? They're called patterns, and you can have anywhere. What are we losing by not doing that, or gaining by doing what we've got? I don't understand what we're gaining by doing it. Anyway, doesn't matter.
I think it's just. I think, like I said, it's the organization of it. You know, do you want your header to be lost in amongst the 200 patterns that you've got on the site? Maybe it should have just been a pattern category called global. It doesn't even work. But like, I don't know. I think it's an organizational thing mostly, but we clearly have no idea what we're talking about. So let's move on.
Yeah, the fact that that's so unclear is very strange to me. How are users supposed to understand it if no one can explain why it's different? Anyway, let's move on. WordPress 6.6.
I'm quite excited about this.
Imminent. Yeah, me too. Some good stuff in there.
Yeah, I think there's been quite a few releases where I'm just like, blah, I really don't care. Like there's nothing in there that does anything for me. This one has a couple of things at least that I think looks really cool. The two big ones for me are the pattern overrides and the grid block. Two major improvements for a site builder, theme developer's quality of life. So pattern overrides, I think we've talked about this in previous episodes. It's essentially being able to create like WordPress components, and locking down kind of some areas of it, reusing it. So, for example, like reusing a kind of pattern or layout while locking down the kind of other elements. So that for me is super exciting. So you can say, if you're creating like a kind of card layout, or maybe an individual kind of person, so you've got an image and someone's name and a little bit of blurb about them and a link, you can create that and then reuse that throughout the site, allowing like the title to be changed, the image to be changed, the blah blah blah. But then you can globally change the style of that. So if I say, actually, I want the background color of all of those to be red, not green, I can now do that, and there's global change across the whole site everywhere that's used. And it goes further than just colors. I think this is a big one.
You can also add and remove elements, can't you? And then they'll get added and removed across. So if you wanted to add an additional sort of like excerpt feature in there or something, you can put that in and it will add it across. I do. And then, so two parts of this next sort of comment. The first one, you can then lock elements, can't you? So you can say like, hey, these cards have all got a green background, and you can't change that because that's the brand of the site. That's it.
I don't know if you can do that.
You can lock elements of a pattern.
Yeah, I don't know how much control you have. Like if you can say specifically things like lock the background color. I don't know if you can do that. Do you know that that's possible?
No, but I think you can say, sorry, I was using background color as just purely as an example of what you might want to lock. I believe you can lock and say content only editing. So the styles would be locked. So when the user edits the page, they can change the content of that pattern. So they can put a new title in, they can put a button label in, they can put a new link for the button in. And then you have style control in the pattern source of what that button looks like. So if you want to make them all red, you just change the pattern and it pushes that red across the whole site. But it doesn't change the button labels and the button links, obviously, because they might have changed those. What my question was, if you didn't lock the patterns, let's say you had you created this pattern and everything had a green background, I drop it on my page, change mine to red, then you change the main pattern to a black background. Does my red that I've customized get changed, or does the fact that I've customized it say, hey, I'm in control of this, don't update it? I wonder what happens in that scenario.
I don't know.
You probably would want it to update, I think, in which case you probably should just lock it. Maybe that's the answer.
That is a tricky one, because you can imagine like a particular pattern and you've given it a particular background color, and then on a certain page you want to place it within a group that has that same background color. So you want, like on this example, I want to change the background color so they don't clash or they're not the same.
Yeah.
Can you do that? I don't know.
I've not attempted that. It just came to my mind then as to the sorts of, because in the old classic themes, you wouldn't have that control as a user, would you, to set the colors and those sorts of things. So now that we give these controls, it does raise these other questions as to what happens when these sorts of functions work now. But certainly worth checking out and so forth. Pixels and Things Place says you can lock elements as well as a whole pattern content only. Elements being like background color, font choice. Is that what you mean by an element? I think so. You can also do it at a block level too. So there are obviously controls that allow us to sort of tweak these things, which is good.
Yeah. Cool.
But pattern overrides definitely a step in the right direction. This is what we've been crying out for almost for a long time, and something that's really held a lot of agencies like us. And I know, like some of you watching, back from using the block editor and stuff.
Peter's just commented. Thanks, Peter. He says the overrides include, so for the heading block, you can override content. For the paragraph block, you can override content. For the button block, you can override the text URL and the URL. For the image block, the URL, the ID, the title, and the alt text. So it's quite limited, but that's probably good. So that's the stuff that you can override every time you use this sync pattern. Those are the things that can change.
Yes.
But everything else remains synced unless things are locked. No, if they're locked, then they would still remain synced. I don't know. There's a lot going on here.
Yeah.
It's
powerful though.
It is powerful. Yeah. There's lots at play. So
I think we just need to make sure that we can limit control where we need to for a client and give control where we need to for a client.
But yeah, the other thing I'm worried about is like building things in a certain way, lots and lots and lots of content being created like that, and then we're like, oh crap, we didn't lock this, or we didn't create that, or we haven't used the sync thing here, or that's my biggest worry. Is that we get into these situations where down the line the client says, "Can we just change this?" and we're like, "No," and they're like, "Well, I thought this was flexible." Well, it would have been if we'd done it the right way, but or a different way, should I say?
Tricky. Yeah. Anyway, good, but yeah, that does look positive, and definitely looks like it's going in the right direction. The next one feature is the grid block, which I had a quick play with before the call, and that does look really quite clever.
It's really good.
Yeah,
it's really good.
Started dragging grid items to make them span, and it kind of didn't work. The front end didn't work. It kind of messed the layout up, but
interesting.
I was messing around, like proper messing around with like stacks and rows and all sorts of stuff. So I kind of get that. But grid block is something we've struggled not having because of things like you're only limited to doing individual columns. And then when you go onto mobile, it doesn't work, does it? Because they drop, you get like 2, 1, 2, 1 instead of like, 2, 2, 2 or 1, 1, 1.
Yeah. And that's like a very, very common use for it. But it's so much more than that. It's a way more powerful layout tool than just that. In terms of like spanning multiple columns. So like you could have a grid of 5 items and you in a 3-column layout, and the first item spans 2 of the columns, then 1, then 1, 1, 1. Things like that just weren't possible. Yeah, and you could have done that with columns block stacked on top of another columns block, like you just said, but then everything goes terrible on mobile. So it's I like it. For my limited testing, the implementation is good. Like it's quite simple, but gives you most of what you need. It doesn't give you like the full CSS grid specification as a UI, because that would be ridiculous.
That's hard, isn't it? But
yeah,
it's about finding that balance between giving you what you need and making it so it's not too complicated, I think. And what I saw, it was definitely a good start. Let's just say that. Maybe it'll have some tweaks and things before even it goes into WordPress 6.6, but you can certainly have a look at it. And I think from my understanding when I have a look at it, it is just a variation of the group block, like a row and a stack is.
Yeah.
So I think under the hood, it's just a group block, and it's got a variation applied to it to make it a grid, which then adds some different controls on the right-hand side and things like that. But that's good. Next on the list is negative margins. Are you excited about negative margins, Keith?
No.
Oh.
But I think if I was already in the FSE kind of world, I probably would be. And what I mean by that is that the sites that we've built previously are built in a way where we don't allow any of the spacing controls. So we don't have padding or margin controls available at all within the sites that we've built up to this point. So I've never, if there's ever a point where you think I need a negative margin to get these two things together, either you're doing it, either you've added the content in the wrong way, or I'll create a CSS style for that particular scenario. So I don't know. I'm trying to think of a good example. If you want to close a gap between 2 elements, I'll use some kind of like adjacent sibling selector and pull the other one up. But that'll be in the theme CSS. That won't be in editor kind of styles.
Wouldn't that be block gap? Oh no.
Well, this is the thing. The sites we built predate all this, so So anyway, negative margins. I can imagine why they're useful. Why some people are very excited about them. I think there's problems with negative margins, especially when it comes to mobile. So I saw Jamie. I saw Jamie do an example. Two things. One where he's kind of pulling something up. So there's like a bit of an overlap between two elements. And then on mobile, because the spacing rules are kind of this fluid rules, so they're using kind of clamps and rems and things like that. But I think his negative margin was set in pixels. So
yeah,
so it pulled it up too far on mobile.
Right. So it covered the thing.
So there's like weirdnesses there which don't quite work. But also I've seen, and I've got two problems with this. Also, I've seen demos where people are using negative left and right margins to kind of overlap elements, which looks really nice. So, for example, you could have an image on one side and some text on another side, and you pull the text so it slightly overlaps the image, right? That's great. I can't see how to do that because in the sites that I've spun up and I've installed the Gutenberg plugin, I don't have left and right margin controls. I don't know if it's only certain groups have that, or if I haven't turned them on, or like I can't say I've got top and bottom margin controls, and I can make those negative. So hooray! But I couldn't find on any block left and right margin controls. Maybe it was just the specific site I used InstaWP again just to spin up a little test site.
Yeah,
couldn't see it. So anyway. But the same problem with that, because we don't have responsive controls, I can pull my text over my image at desktop screen sizes. What on earth is going to happen to that text on mobile when they're no longer sitting side by side? Is that text going to be pulled off the screen? Like, because I can't turn it off on mobile?
yeah.
So I have thoughts. Responsive controls, like, I've kind of never wanted them in a way, because I've always thought the theme should take care of stuff. But because we're moving in this direction, we need them. If you're going to be introducing things like negative margin controls and spacing controls and blah, 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 we're going to need responsive controls. Like, I don't really understand the resistance to it.
Yeah, I kind of agree, I think. Quick test. It looks like margin is different on different blocks.
Yeah, well, I tried a bunch of blocks and I couldn't find one that had left and right margins. A group
block didn't give me left and right margin. It gave me top and bottom. I've added a paragraph block and I can change left and right and top and bottom margin.
Okay.
So I don't know why that is.
Why would that not be allowed on a group block, I wonder?
I don't know. Maybe I'm using 2024 theme. Does the 2024 theme stop that? I think you can control things.
It's probably because left and right margins would totally mess with the kind of layout, because the margins have to probably be set to auto left and right to make sure things center properly.
Okay.
So yeah, it's going to be specific blocks, but if you can't do it to a group though, yeah.
Maybe it's because this is a group inside a grid, and that does something.
Maybe,
I don't know.
Maybe there's a certain nesting level. Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see, but yeah, cool.
So yeah.
Back to our list. So negative margins, one-click styles. I'm going to have to wrap it up because I've only got about 5 minutes left. But one-click styles. I think these are so that you can have like sections of a page and apply like a styling to it, so that you can then change a whole section. I think that's what they are, but I couldn't quite understand the implementation and how you'd actually go about doing that.
No, I don't know the details of it, but that's what it looked like to me. Like,
yeah.
So a theme has some preset styles. So, for example, let's just take really simply, one style is black text on a white background. The other style is white text on a black background. And then, so most of the time you're in the default style, and then you just want to take a whole section of the page and just flip it to the other version. I think that's what this is. Which is kind of cool. I don't really know how that works.
No, my question stands on, what if I've made the text red in the editor? What happens to it then? Does it get changed when I choose the light version or the dark version? Does it remain what I customized it as?
I think it'll probably keep the custom. I think customizations, like, it kind of like cascades like that. In my experience of the block editor so far, things kind of cascade like that.
And how do you say, well, what's a section and what this style applies to this section. I don't, because I can just see you create these wonderful section styles, and then the client just goes in and starts changing it all. Like, oh, put that as black background, put that as white text. Whereas they could have just clicked. Like, how do they know this is a section and I can change its style? I don't know.
I don't know.
Useful maybe, but
I think it is. I think that could be really useful.
Definitely work to do in understanding it and having a go with it. Definitely. If anyone's used it, let us know if you've had a go with it.
One last thing from you on the list, Mark. Sorry,
I was just going to say, if you've used, if you're wondering, how to use all this stuff, there's 2 ways you can use it. I installed the WordPress beta plugin, so it'll download the latest beta version of WordPress, which is 6.6, and it's included in that. Or I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, I think you can install the Gutenberg plugin, the latest version of the Gutenberg plugin, and it will have these new things in it that are being developed, so you can install that and have a play around with them. And then the last thing from me on the list was that I am speaking at WordPress London in September. Going to be talking about our move to sort of a more products based and the sort of pros and cons of that. I think we had a session on that a few months ago, so it'll be covering some things of that. But it would be awesome to say hello to people if you want to come along to WordPress London at the end of September. I think it's the 26th.
Yeah. We'll both be there.
Flip my calendar across really quick to have a look. Yeah, 26th to the 26th to 27th. I'm staying overnight, obviously, because it's away. So that's why I've got that. But yeah, it'd be great to see you there if there's anyone in the area. WordPress London, Thursday the 26th. Yeah, I'm speaking. So there you go. Right, we better wrap it up.
Let's wrap it up.
51 minutes.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure to have you along as always. If you are not subscribed, please do consider subscribing either on YouTube or through your podcast player of choice. Also follow along on X. We just for updates and things like that, it's kind of useful. And if you do subscribe on YouTube, make sure you hit that notification bell as well, because then you will get an email as soon as one of these shows goes live. It's been great to have your comments and questions as always. Really, really appreciate that. So hope everyone has a great week, and see you next time.
Bye-bye.